Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squared for boxing news and views from around the internet. The former unified champion Anthony Joshua has arrived in Saudi Arabia less than 2 weeks out from his scheduled rematch with Andy Ruiz Jr. That is, of course, happening December 7th in Diriyah, Saudi Arabia. So Joshua has arrived, and with him he's brought along a couple of his sparring partners. So that would seemingly indicate that camp, his preparations, the 12 weeks he's had to prepare for this fight, it's not quite done yet. A little bit more grind to go, and we'll talk about that because I think some fans will definitely have some views on whether Joshua should be sparring so close to a big fight like this. There were some concerns after the first fight that he had been sparring Joey Daweko 8 days out from the fight, but we'll come to that. Also, we'll just have a quick peek at some of the footage that has been released on social media about the stadium. This is a stadium that's been built from scratch in recent months to cater to this fight, and it actually looks pretty decent, and we'll come to that. A little bit of footage later on and a few thoughts. But Joshua, his arrival in Saudi Arabia, you can see here on screen at the airport in Riyadh. All smiles, and obviously some people coming up for photos, all that sort of stuff as you would normally expect. So with him, he's actually brought a couple of sparring partners. For his camp, he's had a lot of sparring, and this is something that he said has been different for this camp. He's spoken about wanting to be toughened up by hard sparring. And a couple of guys that come with him, one is Bryant Jennings, you can see here on screen. This is from his Instagram page, so this one here, a very blue lit room. Is this his hotel room or a nightclub? Who knows? But in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, and also in some of the local garb in a mall, by the looks of it, saying, I used to live on corners, now I live on the road. And Jennings, he's been in camp for the past few weeks. A more recent addition compared to a few other sparring partners. We're aware of at least 8 guys who have been in camp. Could actually be more than that. You know, sometimes with these training camps, not all the sparring partners and their names actually come out or released. It's generally through social media that you know that they've been in camp with a big fighter. But a guy who's been there pretty much right throughout is Timothy Moten, and he has accompanied Anthony Joshua to Saudi Arabia. You can see here, here's another shot from Moten in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. I've just got, what's the caption here? Day 1 in Saudi Arabia complete. What an experience. This is only the start. And also he's posted from the Holiday Inn, and by the looks of it, he's killing it at the buffet. Several shots of all sorts of different types of food, which clearly he wants to get into, or did get into, and just wanted to show off on the gram. But Timothy Moten, obviously, besides just killing it at the buffet, he's obviously been giving Anthony Joshua some good work in camp. He's been, after his first stint in camp, because he had a fight partway through that camp, invited back for the last part. So he really has been a fixture throughout Anthony Joshua's camp, and also bringing him to Saudi Arabia. That is, so confidence in Moten and what he's been providing Joshua, that is obviously a sort of a big tick for Timothy Moten. And obviously if Joshua performs well, I'm sure there'll be a number of top heavyweights who will probably send an invite Moten's way at some point, because if he's giving good work to Joshua, he can give it to others as well. But in terms of the question about sparring this late in the piece, is it a good idea? I mean, that's the question. After the first fight, there was some concern from fans. Had Joshua actually left his run a little bit too late, sparring too late in the piece? Obviously, rumours that he might have been hurt by Joey Daweko in sparring. And if he is going to be sparring in Saudi Arabia, bringing 2 sparring partners along, at least 2 that we're aware of, there could be others that maybe some haven't posted to social media. This is how we become aware of these things, as I mentioned earlier. I was sort of thinking a couple of weeks out from the fight, he must be almost about to begin the tapering period. And you can see here on screen, this is one of those airport photos. He is looking quite lean, but in the next sort of 10 days or so, as he does start to sort of have a bit of rest, he probably is going to have some food. I mean, just remember ahead of the Luis Ortiz and Deontay Wilder fight, you know, there was a lot of talk about Ortiz looking like he was looking really light compared to, you know, recent fights and photos and other bits and and pieces. And on the broadcast of that fight, they said Ortiz was as low as 230, but they let him rest, recover, they let him eat so he could feel strong. He ended up weighing in at 236 pounds. So I do think we might end up seeing something similar with Anthony Joshua, that his fight weight will be a bit different to maybe what he's weighing now, and as he tapers, he might put on a few pounds. And that has happened before. Ahead of the Carlos Takam fight, he was in the mid-240s, and then all of a sudden he weighed in at 254 pounds. And they had said after that, this is Rob McCracken, that they were going to be paying closer attention to that for future fights. So I do think he will come in a few more pounds heavier than maybe he looks at the moment, but I'm still expecting something around, between 240 and 243, somewhere in that range. But should Joshua, at this stage in the game, should he be sparring? He's brought 2 sparring partners along, and I'm sure it's not just him bringing them along for the ride, to effectively do nothing. He is going to be working out with them in some sense, because otherwise what is the point in bringing them along with him? So, tell me your thoughts on this, and is the camp, is this sort of risking something here? Obviously a couple of weeks out, or less than a couple of weeks now, there could be the risk of injury, or even potentially, a head knock, a concussion, who knows? And that was the claim after the first fight, that perhaps he had been concussed in sparring late in the piece of the training camp leading up to that June 1st fight. So leave your thoughts on that one. But also I just wanted to cover off, and this is from Eddie Hearn, his Instagram. So you can see here on screen, they're at the stadium, and I'll play this clip. So you can see here, panning along, and I've just slowed this down. This looks like a pretty impressive temporary stadium. I don't know what I was sort of thinking or expecting the stadium to look like, but I wasn't expecting it to look as intimate as this one does, because the sort of design of the stadium, it doesn't really look like there's going to be any real bad seat. I was sort of thinking a stadium that was going to be more, at ground level and maybe a little bit of elevation, but maybe not quite so much as there actually is. This does look like a sort of gladiatorial arena, that sort of thing. And given it is quite small, I think they were saying, what was it, 16,000 or 12,000 seats, whatever it is, it's still a relatively small number in the context of a sporting stadium for a big event. It looks like, there's going to be no bad seats, but clearly the stadium is coming along. It's almost ready. You can see a bit of plastic and other bits and pieces and a few things around the place. It's obviously not finished yet, but they still have time to get it done. But it doesn't look far away. But what do you make of this? The stadium is almost ready. Joshua arrives in Saudi Arabia, brings along a couple of sparring partners. Is it wise that he is still sparring at this point in his build-up? Or should the hard work have already been done back in the UK? Let me know what you think. Drop a comment loud and often. Hit like, hit subscribe, follow me on Twitter. Boxing_squared. I'm out.